Hi, welcome everyone to the fourth session of what's called the DIFF Talks series, a series of conversations with filmmakers and film professionals organized by the Dharamshala International Film Festival. I'm Trisha Gupta, a columnist and critic based in Delhi, and I'm very pleased to welcome today for the fourth of these talks, Gurvinder Singh, who is an exceptional filmmaker who's works I've written about, and I've also spoken to him in the past. In fact, when Chauthi Koot first was released in India, which is August 2016, is that right? So welcome, Gurinder, and thank you so much for making the time to do this and have this conversation with us.
Hi, Trisha. Thank you for this. And yeah, one has all the time now to talk about things. Because literally, there is nothing to do other than do something which you are self-motivated to do. Because all the work firms are kind of stuck in limbo for the time being. And so one has enough time to think, relax, and I've been sleeping a lot. I've been sleeping like for 10 hours every day.
That sounds like it could be a good thing.
It's a very good thing. It's like, it's like, I wonder, that if this lockdown, like now it's been almost been 2 months at home. And I was trying to recall when did last time I spent like 2 months not going out of town anywhere, and I really can't remember when was it the last time. So it's something which is a kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah, but definitely with a lot of limitations and with a lot of and what's happening around it, the politics around it, one is kind of very suspicious of right now. So yeah.
And I mean, we have the most privileged version of the lockdown, and not to say that it is easy, but what's happening outside, the people who are actually being forced to travel and not being allowed to go home and so on. That is, So it's, Are you you're locked down in Chandigarh? You said now.
Yes. So and it's quite relaxed actually now in Chandigarh. It's
the lockdown, so people are moving around.
Yeah. It's like from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. there is no problem to move around in the city. Most of the shops are open, except for the big shopping complexes and malls. Almost everything else is open. So now it's almost like normal.
So I was, maybe we should go quickly into the thing we're here to discuss, which is ideally Chauthi Koot. So Chauthi Koot, for everyone, if there's anyone who's watching this video and hasn't seen the film yet, it's the film that is currently playing as part of the DIFF viewing room. And I recommend highly that you watch it. It's the second of Gurvinder's fiction features set in Punjab. The first was Anhe Ghore Dadan. And both of these films, interestingly, are adapted from fiction in Punjabi. And Chauthi Koot means the fourth direction. And you adapted it from two stories by Varyam Singh Sandhu. And I was wondering whether, this is something that has always intrigued me about the film, that it has two stories that you've conjoined, and it's something that I may have asked you before, but I'd be interested to if you speak about how you thought of working with these stories and what inspired you to make that merging structural kind of shift.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, perhaps intertwining to see. First of all, they are related thematically, so they are not as if they are not opposing in any sense. So they both are set in the same time and the same period, and the conflict of the 80s, the militancy in Punjab is the background for both the stories.
Yeah.
So thematically, they are united thematically. They're united by the invisible background, or sometimes the visible, sometimes the invisible background. And they both they were evoking the same things. So though, and one story was taking place in a, in a, in a in a public space like the railway station, and then the train as they get into the train. So, and the other one was taking place inside a house, in a farmhouse, in an isolated farmhouse. So it was like both the worlds, the home and the outside. And so it in a way, so there was already a lot of things which were kind of, both the stories were in a way united by these things. And then it was just a question of how to move from one story to another. For me, one of the major reasons why perhaps I chose both, because I felt one story was not, though one story is complete in itself, both stories are complete in itself, but somehow were not, but contrasted with each other or joined with each other, they were conveying a much wider sense than an individual story would have.
Right.
And secondly, it breaks the linearity.
Which is something that
we're interested in knowing. Space. It breaks the linearity of one set of characters in space, and then you go into another set of characters and a different space, and then the echoes of the first space and the characters stays with you, and to the extent that you almost have forgotten that where you started from and where you are, till in the end you come back to that first set again. Yeah. So so working with these like two different sets, and having one set in between, the major set in between, and like the other set split in two parts, in the beginning and the end. So that was the broader structure I had in mind. And then, once I made, and that's the structure, of course, was in the screenplay also. But then it was, I thought, okay, let's just shoot both of them separately, like two different films. And then we will see in edit if the structure I am thinking works or not.
Oh,
and then
right.
we will see if it works. Yeah, of course. So it might not have worked.
Did you shoot it like that so that it could have been two different films?
It could have been filmed in two parts, otherwise simply. But that would have been very boring for me. That wouldn't have been exciting for me at all. And but then that was like, in case my plan didn't work, then one could go to that.
We have two short possible fictions. Yeah.
They both were shot in different schedules, so they were like two different films. So one is set in the winter. The train story is set in the winter, and the other one, the farmhouse story, is set in the rainy season, in the summer leading to the rain.
Yeah.
So actually, you see the first rainfall there, which became a part of it. So we shot it in a season where I was expecting that the monsoon to arrive, the first rains, the thunderstorm and the rain. So which actually happened during the middle of that shoot. So it was like that, And then when we started, once we finished shooting both, I had finished one part and then I edited it, then went and shot the second part and edited, and then brought it together and viewed the film, and then I felt, okay, what I had conceived is perhaps working. So
I think this is fascinating because we've spoken before, and I feel like the sense of the importance that you give to editing. If I remember, you've spoken of that idea of not cutting when the information in a shot is conveyed, and sort of staying a bit longer, and that sense of, when I watched the film again before this conversation, I was really struck by the time that we spend with many shots actually, where and of course I was struck again by the storm that you've just mentioned, which as you were saying, you kind of partly knew. So I'm interested in this combination of knowing that you're entering a space where ye season hai, matlab ki, so that is obviously intentional and sort of predicted by you. And on the other hand, I remember you telling me that there was this particular sequence in the script which you actually excised while filming because the storm
Yeah,
came.
the storm became a sequence in itself, and then what was in the script kind of became unnecessary, or rather, I would say, was replaced by a little more indirect hint at what might have happened. Because the
Yeah,
CRPF, as in the script, there's a scene where like Joginder, who's the head of the family, is taken away. I mean, you see the police, you see the CRPF raiding the house, but
yeah.
then in the script, there was more than that. There was that he's taken away for questioning and then later released. And so that part I did not shoot it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, for me, the storm is
Yeah,
absolutely.
so there's a storm, and the night you see the family sitting and having dinner, and
Yeah.
people are angry. So I thought that was enough. There was no need to show any other kind of brutality.
I mean, in some ways, that is a choice that, I mean, both your films, I feel like, are about kind of structural forms of violence. I mean, in Anhe Ghoda Didan, it's probably more about, the community and caste and that kind of, I would say, would be social, economic kind of violence. And here in the state is more of an actor, from the first scene where you see the boots of the I guess it's the CRPF on the platform, and then you see the boots being polished, and from there on, I mean, you have a sense it's a very menacing presence of the state, and yet it's not. I mean, watching it now in a time when we also have a fairly menacing presence of the police, and one is constantly assailed in the time of lockdown by the police beating up people, for being out literally now. And before this, we've had a time where there's this very specific where in the film the community that is being targeted are the Sikhs, and this is the kind of the period just around and just leading up to the Operation Blue Star. And I feel like I was watching it now, and I was struck by that very specific targeting of a community, which now in India is quite clearly the Muslim community. And I wondered whether this is something that strikes you, the parallels, and whether that was something that you were thinking about when you were making the film.
No, I mean, situation in 15 was not so bad.
Yes.
14, BJP government had just come in, but one didn't know one did not expect that the way things have unfolded, that they would be so severe and so brutal. So I didn't think of it at that time. But yes, of course, the indications were already there, even in the pre 2014 time. So it's not as if it was all hunky dory before BJP, and now it's all.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But now when I look back, I definitely see the parallels, and if the Congress used the anti-Sikh sentiment, especially after starting with Indira Gandhi and then with her assassination, how Congress came back to power with the biggest majority ever, and how they united the majority vote, if I can say the majority community vote against, because of an anti-minority sentiment.
Yes.
And where minorities portrayed as terrorist, as anti-national, as hobnobbing with the enemy nations. So same thing now. So if the Congress used the Sikhs as a tool to strengthen the majority sentiment, the same way BJP is doing the same by strengthening their majority vote bank by continuously playing up this anti-minority sentiment, and even in an epidemic like coronavirus or COVID is used. In the beginning itself, it's made into a Hindu-Muslim thing.
Yeah,
By,
I mean,
playing to the gallery, the whole Tablighi Jamaat, that and it was idiotic of them to do whatever they did. But the way it was played out in India, it completely became Hindu Muslim. Even an epidemic was immediately converted into a Hindu Muslim issue.
Yeah, I mean, and it's continuing. So yeah, it's in Chauthi Koot. I mean, one of the most and because I mean, since it is so, I don't know whether understated is a good word. It makes it seem like it's not powerful, but there is a way in which the scene where the two younger Sikh men and then the other older Sikh gentleman come running, after behind these other two men who until then they haven't really chatted or anything, but there's a kind of community that was built inside that train compartment. I'm not giving away too much of the film, and I feel like I don't want to give it away because there is a sense of suspense almost that the film also has. But that when they come and they say, "आप तो दौड़ने लगे, आप तो हमारे को हमारे लिए wait नहीं किया," and that it's really it's both simple, like a statement that would be made, but everything feels like a metaphor when you have the wait and the time. So somehow I heard it this time more metaphorically than I had before, and that sentence. I don't know. I mean, dialogue. You worked with Varyam Singh Sandhu on the dialogue as well when you were adapting the film.
No. I mean, I've actually never worked with the writer.
Right. Okay.
So it's always been that I worked with a friend of mine who's simply I would say that whose Punjabi is better than my Punjabi. So he works with me on dialogues. His name is Jasdeep. Right. And so we have always, it's a question of taking some dialogues from the original fiction work and then we're writing additional dialogues or sometimes adapting the dialogues to suit the screenplay. So yeah, some of course, some of the dialogues are gem in the story, in the original story. So why would I not take them?
Yeah, of course.
So a lot of dialogues do come directly from the story, and some are rewritten, and some are freshly written. So so it's always a mix of these three things.
But of course, I mean, your films and certainly Chauthi Koot. I mean, there is a lot of silence and there is a lot of sound, which is not the spoken word. And it's something that I don't know. Okay, maybe let me start with this, which is that this is set in an 80s Punjabi village, and there is a remarkable quality to the silence, and I just wondered from a sort of making
villages. Sorry, but villages are very silent places.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you whether it is still as silent, and did you make sure that there wasn't, like, are there no disruptive mobile phone ringtones breaking out in the night in a Punjab village now?
Now, of course, it's a bit different. Now, there's the biggest menace in Punjab are the loudspeakers blaring from the Gurdwara.
I wonder about the artfulness of your silence, because
I will be lynched for this, but yeah, it's a big menace. They disturb your sleep at 4 a.m,
right?
And they wake you up because that's the time you're supposed to wake up, which is called the Amrit Vela, and so you're supposed to like the announcement at 4 a.m, to wake up, take your bath, get ready, come to the Gurdwara. It's like and then any time in the day, sometimes on occasions like Sangrand or on the full moon day, they are like kirtan all day, So it's a big nuisance. The loudspeakers are a big nuisance. Other than the loudspeakers, the villages are not noisy, I must say. And even now in the night, it's once it's dark, the village activity is nil. Nobody ventures out in the village once it's night. And then in the 80s, of course, there was no question of coming out in the dark. And also, the kind of house which is portrayed in the film, it's in the middle of the farms, and a lot of people do make their houses outside, away from. Some people have their lands a little away from the village, So
Yeah,
question
that's
of
what the
managing the
family
land
said.
becomes easier if they make a house within the farmland. So a lot of people do that, and all over Punjab. So they might have an ancestral house in the village, but then they'll make another house in their own farmland, and it's convenient to live, to work from there. And so it's that kind of a house. So it's more isolated. It's even more, it's unguarded. You can say, there's no
Yeah.
community to even guard you, and on all four sides you are like, in a way, uh, anybody can come in the middle of the night. And I mean, that time most of the militants would walk around in the night and look for shelter. They could knock at any door and ask for shelter, food, or anything. So yeah. But
You
yes, but even now the countryside is that quiet in the night. In the village is that quiet. I do go often and stay in the villages, and it's very quiet even.
You've not grown up in the Punjab areas that you are shooting in, or in Punjab generally. So
I've grown up in Delhi completely. I was a Delhi boy till I started traveling to Punjab after finishing my film institute. So I started traveling, I think, in 2002. And
this is when you had already started thinking about making documentaries, and or
yeah, I was doing some documentation work. I was documenting the ballads. I was moving around with the mirasis and the folk performers.
yeah,
And so 4 years I was doing that. I had some grants to do that.
yeah,
And so that was my first engagement with Punjab. And
yeah.
that
When
kind of
with,
opened up.
with you ended up
Yeah. So that kind
following
of
the
opened up.
Kissa singers.
Pardon?
When you ended up following the Kissa singers, you once
Yes, yes,
mentioned
yes, yes.
for many years. Yeah,
Yes, the documentation of the Kissa singers, which I did for about 4 years.
it's
And
a long time.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, it was a long time, but not continuously. I would go from Delhi and follow somebody. Like, so
yeah,
was more or less related to an occasion. So if some singer is going and performing in some mela or or at some dargah or at some urs or at any peer's place, I would coordinate with them and go and travel with them. So things like that happened for like 4 years, and that opened up. So the genesis of Annegodan is actually in that seeing the whole subaltern class and their their relationship to the upper caste, their socioeconomic conditions, their role in the society, their folklore and their gods, and their peers and everything. So the whole it was a new world for me. Somebody coming from Delhi, a Khatri family who have their roots in Pakistan and knows nothing about our side of Punjab. So it was completely a new world for me. And then and before I did that, actually I had already read a novel by Gurvinder Singh. So it stayed with me. I didn't read it at that time again, but then after having finished this documentation, these travels, I went back to the novel, and then then of course one reads it in a very different light after having been exposed to the real life. So yes, so that's when I decided to write that screenplay.
do you still you began by saying that the sound of the Punjab village now, but like not now during lockdown, but otherwise in the last few years, are there projects that take you back since Chauthi Koot was done to Punjab,
Yeah,
to the village,
I've just finished shooting a feature in Punjabi.
right?
So yeah, so we finished shooting in January.
Oh, right, okay. Would you
Yeah.
want to say something about that?
So it's again an adaptation of Gurdial Singh, the writer of Annegodan.
Yeah,
It's called it's a novella. It's called Ad Chandni Raat.
matlab
Yeah,
half
yeah,
half
Half Moon Night.
night. Huh,
Acha, but yeah, the English title I've kept is Crescent Night.
huh,
So the Punjabi title remains the same, Ad Chandni Raat.
huh.
And Yeah, in Punjab, it's a very popular novel. I think it was part of the college curriculum also. A lot
Oh,
of people
right.
people who know Punjabi literature know this novel very well. In fact, Anne Godadan was an obscure novel of Gurvinder Singh. This is a more well-known
But,
and many people have read this novel.
right.
So yeah,
And what
but of course,
uh,
but of course, it's been now. I have what but what it's inspired from the novel. I would say it's not based. It's kind of based on the novel, but it doesn't follow the full narrative of the novel. So I get into the story of the novel, and then I leave it, and then I just uh, rewrite the novel. You can say.
which
So
all your films I think do, and as they should.
no, not so
Perhaps.
much as it should, but here, even in the writing itself.
Right. What is the film about? Let me not ask you what the novel is about.
The film is about a man an ex-convict,
Right.
trying to restart his life.
Okay.
So it's a man who's committed murder, and it's about a person who spent life imprisonment, and and the film starts the day he returns from the prison.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and how he goes about to, so how he tries to kind of start anew. You have to start basically a new life, and yeah. So it's just that's the only thing I can say right now.
Yeah.
And but again, it has its you. There are certain similar. So this time it's like more or less looks at the violence in the feudal society.
Right.
Yeah. So though it was written in the 70s, but the resonances are still the same things are still happening. People fighting over land and property. So yeah. This is actually doesn't have any kind of political backdrop, but it's more of a personal story, but set in a kind of a dealing with feudal violence.
So the film is ready. You said it's finished, or was it shot, or have you finished with post production as well?
No, not post production because we we are almost at the stage of finishing the editing.
Right. I was
Yeah.
wondering, just in the conversation, just before the conversation, the off the record, you was talking about how you've been wondering about what is in store for cinema in a post-COVID world, and I was wondering, what have you been thinking about it? What do you see happening? I mean, none of us can predict what's happening, but how do you see it right now?
I definitely see a lull for some time. I see that it will become a little more difficult to find funding, and I don't know. I mean, I'm also kind of dismayed by the way the OTT platforms have been treating independent cinema. You know,
Ah,
and
okay. Would you say more?
I will clearly say that platform like Netflix is not interested in having Chauthi Koot online anymore. So that is not a sign of good times, anyways. They have gone completely mainstream, and that was we felt like 2-3 years ago was giving a new fillip to the independent cinema movement. To be able to have your film sold and recover some money at least. We know that there is no theatrical distribution for most of these films.
Yeah.
So film festivals plus these platforms was giving us new lease of life. But I think now I don't see any. They have platforms like Netflix, Amazon have completely turned mainstream. They're churning out trash. They're buying B grade, C grade films, but they don't think worthwhile investing a film like Jyoti, even though it was there for 3 years on the platform. So that's the status. And so this is really going to affect independent filmmaking in the future. Again, we'll have problems recovering, making films, making recovering even a part of their production costs.
Yeah, I mean,
That is going to have an effect again on financing and production. So
do you feel like there was a kind of brief flirtation with
Yeah,
independent.
there was. I would say there was this 2-3 year period where they were buying really some good content, independent content, and paying, I think, a good sum of money for buying these films. Decent from the point of view of the, but again they've gone. But I don't think it's going to happen now. Though, with an event like lockdown and people watching, I heard that the viewership of Netflix has doubled or tripled. I don't know what has happened, but still they don't. They are kind of reluctant to have this kind of content on their platforms. So I don't know what the future will be like.
I mean, what would you wish for in a time? I mean, the coronavirus is probably not going anywhere for the next 2 or 3 years. Is there something that, what would you wish could be done in terms of promoting or helping independent cinema to survive this period? Is there something that...
Online platforms was the only way out, was the only way these films would have got promoted. And I don't see them do. I mean, there is movie definitely, which has,
And he
but
could
with
have
that,
done, he's playing on movie,
yeah,
right?
yes, but then this always there just for a month. They have a different kind of approach to the way they see it. So it's their own way of looking at it, and at least they are showing they're showing good content on movie. But then again, I have a complaint against them. Why is Indian cinema never a part of the world cinema?
Yeah, it's extremely rare, and they've actually separated it out.
I think I saw Uski Roti on it once.
That's it. Yeah, that's
Yes.
literally it.
I have not seen. I mean, you think that? I mean, we need to. I mean, they. I mean, uh, do they really think that no Indian film is worthwhile going on the world cinema section, and they has to be confined to the India section?
Yeah, it's though I have to say when it first started.
I mean, I'm going to be very open. They have asked for Chauthi Koot and we have refused to give Chauthi Koot.
Oh, I see. But you've
No,
given.
I will be very open. They pay very less. They pay peanuts. It's of no use to a film like Chauthi Koot.
So
fine, it will help me find more viewers, but it will not help us recover any money.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Yeah. So I mean, do you think there's a different payment rate as well between the?
I don't know what we were offered for Chauthi Koot is so ridiculous that we had to immediately say no.
But you agreed to put Anhe Ghode Dadan, so that's why I'm just asking this question.
No, I don't have the right. I mean,
you don't have the right.
Belongs to NFDC, and they are dealing with NFDC. But Chauthi Koot has a producer whose name is Kartikeya Singh, and we at least discuss before what we do with the film. So he discussed with me, and I said, no, this is ridiculous. We are not giving them the film for this lower cost.
Right. Okay, I wasn't aware of this. It's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know what they're offering to other films. I don't know, but what we were offered was ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, I mean, those are.
It's better to have it for free on a platform like DIFF rather than sell it for peanuts to movie.
This is the fate clearly of what is I mean, certainly I know that I have that sort of view on often that it comes to that feeling that might as well do it for free for a platform that one is, I don't know, somehow believes in. Than get the peanuts that, I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's just say, even from the perspective of being a journalist. But should we maybe quickly come to wrap up this conversation? And we've, of course, strayed quite far away from the subject of Chauthi Koot. But, this is what happens if it's a conversation.
No, because it is important. If independent cinema does not make money,
yes,
it's going to die a slow death. That's what happened to the new Indian new wave. There was no once NFDC and once NFDC stopped supporting these films, it slowly faded away.
Yes, and
and so so the new wave was there because there were a few. Most of the films were supported by NFDC. and a few by even the states. There was
Yes.
some state finance sports.
Yes.
So that gave us the Indian new wave of the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
And this new wave, this new independent cinema was riding on film festivals and the OTT platforms. If the OTT platforms are going to withdraw the support, is you will see a slow death again.
On this quite bleak note, I think we should probably wrap up this conversation. But thank you very much for speaking to me. And I hope that, people who can make a difference to this situation are listening, is all one can say.
So.
Yeah. And I hope the remaining months of lockdown, we hope it's months and, not more than that, are good for you. And and I hope the film that you are in the middle of gets completed soon. And I'm looking forward to watching a new film from.
Thank you, Trisha.